Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Septuagint, and I'm just going through the story of Samson from book of Judges, chapter 13, and I got up to, I think, verse 9. Kai es ekusen hothios tes vernes benoi, kai elthen ho angelos to theou eti prosten gunaika kai haute akathe to en agro, kai Manoah ho ane autes uk ein met autes. And the god, I should say, heard from akuo. Now, normally akuo takes a genitive of person, accusative of, but here it's taking a genitive of the voice, which is not really proper classical Greek, but God heard the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came, eti, and again. Eti often means still, but it has the sense of again. So it came again to the woman. She's never named, of course, in the story, which often happens in many of these works from antiquity. The woman's never named. Kai haute, and she sat, she was sitting in the field, and Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Kai etakunen hegune kai edramen kai anangelen to andriates kai epen prosauton idu optai prosme ho ane hosaelthen en hemera prosme. And the woman made haste from takuno. Takos is the word for swift. Takuno is to act swiftly or make haste. And this is the imperfect here. It also, I think it's just the imperfect from takuno. It's hard to tell with this verb. It could be the aorist as well. Kai edramen, that is aorist, from treko is the verb. It's an irregular verb, so it's treko dramumai. Edramen is the aorist. So she ran and she reported, another aorist. And Greek and many literary tropes like doing things in threes, so she made haste, she ran, and she reported to her husband, and said to him, behold, the man. Now, optai is a perfect passive from horao. It's that opt root, from whence we get ophthalmos and so on. And if you take it as a passive, then the prosme is really for hupome. I think it's probably better to take this, it is passive in form. It could be a perfect middle as well, but often this passive, especially with this verb, simply means appeared to. So in the passive, especially in the Septuagint, I've seen this quite a few times. So behold, the man appeared to me, I think is the better way of taking this grammatically, even though it is passive, who came on in the day to me. So perhaps on that day or something, to me, perhaps the other day. It is a Hebraism, but it's odd even here. Kai aneste, kai eparuthe Manoah opiso tes gunaikos autu, kai elthen prostonandra, kai epen auto, esu ho ane ho lelesas prosten gunaika, kai epen ho angelus ego. And Manoah, he arose and he went from Paruamai, literally behind his wife, or perhaps after his wife, so she's leading the way. And he came to the man, and he said to him. Now we get a twice here, but this one is from the verb to be. You can see by the accent there. This is if, and it's slightly odd here. It's something like he asked if, but then it's direct speech. So probably best not to translate the first. A is simply saying, are you the man, the one having spoken to the woman? And the angel said, Ego, I am, understood. Kai epen Manoah nun eleusatai hologosu tis estai krisis tu pai diu kai ta poiemata autu. And Manoah said, now this is slightly odd expression here. We're getting this use of the verb to be, sorry, the verb to come, erkamai. This is the future. So it must have the sense of come to pass. The Hebrew uses a form from the one of the verbs meaning to go, and it's a future there, so it means come, but in the sense of come to pass. So Manoah said, now your word will come to pass. It's almost a wish. Would that your word will happen, will come to pass. It's a very odd phrase. What will be, another odd expression here, krisis, which is a very unusual choice of word here, possibly chosen to correspond to the Hebrew root shofet, meaning a judge, because the boy is going to become one of the judges. And it's probably closer to that rather than the original meaning of the Greek word, so something like rule, perhaps. So what will be the rule that governs the boy? It's the judgment. It's literally what will be the judgment of the boy. So what will be the rule, perhaps the rule of life of the boy, and his doings, his poiemata, and his actions or his works. Kai epin ho angelos kuriu pros Manoah apopanton hon hereka pros ten gunaika phulaxatai. And the angel said, the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, he will, this is future middle here, he will keep himself from all those things, and then hone, which, attracted into the genitive, which I said to the woman. So perhaps he will abstain from, refrain from, keep guard from all of those things, and then he lists some of them. Apopantos, ho ek poruatai ek ampelu tu oinu u phagetai kai oinon sikera methusma me poieto kai pan akatha ton me. And then on the next page we get phageto, which we'll get to in a minute. So from everything, so he will not eat from anything, from each thing, from anything which ek poruatai, which proceeds literally from the bunch of grapes of the wine. So slightly again unusual expression here. I think I'll just translate it from the grapevine, from the grape of the wine. So from the grapevine, perhaps you've got to supply grapes. So because he isn't to eat any of the grapes, understood, that proceed from the grapevine, and he's not. Let him not drink wine, nor sikera methusma, nor strong drink. Now sikera is, you notice there's no accents on that because the editor realizes it's just a transliteration of the Hebrew word shekar, meaning, which has the same meaning as methusma. And in the Hebrew there's only one word, and yet the Greek's got two. So it may be that the translator has transliterated the Hebrew and then felt the need to put an explanatory Greek word in here. This is a late word. It's only it occurs elsewhere in the Septuagint. It occurs once in the New Testament in Luke's Gospel. Luke was very well read in the Septuagint. So he let him not drink wine or strong drink, and any unclean thing may phageto, let him not eat. So let him not eat any unclean thing. Panta hossa en telamen aute phulaxatai. But all things, as many as I commanded to her, this is from en telamai, phulaxatai, he will refrain from, he will guard from. Future from phulasso, future middle. Kai apen Manoah pros ton angelon kuriou kataskomen hodi se kai poiesomen enopion tu erifon igon. And Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, let us detain you here. This is from Cat Echo. The aorist of echo is eskon. Take away the accent, you get the root sk, original sek. So this is cat echo, to restrain, or perhaps here to detain. So let us detain you here, and we will make, and then there's no really direct object here. You have to supply thusian here. We will make a sacrifice. We will make a sacrifice before you, a kid from the goats. So we will sacrifice before you a kid from the goats. Kai apen ho angelos kuriou pros menoi eon kataskes me uphagamai apoton arton su kai eon poiesas holo kautoma to kuriou anoises auto. And the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, if you detain me, so there's that cat echo again, this is the aorist subjunctive here, if you detain me, I will not eat from the, literally from your bread, arton, or from literally loaves of bread, so from your food, I think we just translate it as. And if you make a hollow kautoma, a whole burnt offering. The cow in here is from the verb kaio, aorist ekausa, and so we're getting that root and then the hollow for whole. So a whole burnt offering. You will, anoises is from anaphero, another irregular verb. The future of pharaoh is oiso, and then ainenkon and then enainoka. It's a very irregular verb. So you will offer it to the to Yahweh. Now here we're getting the name of God with the article, which is not that common, but possibly because it's in the dative here. Hoti uk egno Manoah hoti angelos kuriou autos, because Manoah did not know that he, understand, was an angel of Yahweh. Kai apen Manoah proston angelon kuriou ti onomasu soi, hoti elthoi toremasu kai doxas domen se. And Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, what is the name for you? So what is your name? Now the hoti here is, we see this happening quite a few times in the Septuagint, especially in this book. It's a literal translation. The Hebrew word here is ki, and which is always translated by hoti. Now ki has a range of meanings. It can mean because, it can mean if, and it can mean here, it must be treated as though it was hotet, meaning when. And we get hoti here, we just have to translate it as when. The translator's just literally seen ki and put down hoti, perhaps without really thinking about what that really meant in Greek. The elthoi is optative from erchomai, aorist optative, because it hasn't happened yet. So when when your word might come, understand come to pass. So we saw before eusamai from erchomai meaning to come to pass. Now we've seen the aorist of that, the same meaning. So he says to the angel, what is your name? That when your word comes to pass, also we will glorify you. Kai apen auto ho angelos kuriou estituto erotas to onomamu. Kai auto esti thaumaston. And the angel of Yahweh said to him, Aste, for what reason do you ask this, and in apposition to tutor, this my name? And we would say because here, but this is the verb consecutive in Hebrew, just joining things on. So we'd say since it is thaumaston, perhaps it means marvelous, perhaps beyond your comprehension, beyond your understanding, something like that. Kai elaben Manoah ton erephon ton igon kai ten thusian kai anenenken epiten petron to kurio. And Manoah took heirest from Lambano the kid of the goats, or from the goats, and the Thusian. Now the Hebrew here has minha, which is a cereal offering, a cereal oblation. And so this is a different offering, a different sacrifice. Thusia is literally sacrifice, but it's being used in a slightly different sense here. And offered it on the rock to Yahweh. Kai dia korisen poiesai kai Manoah kai hebune auto blepontes. Now again, this is a very obscure here, and the Hebrew is also obscure. It literally is, they divided to make. Well, the Hebrew says something like, he was acting marvelously for doing, which is also just equally obscure. The Greek sense, this dekorisen may be something to do with cutting up, to prepare it, and then understand for sacrifice or for eating. It's just very obscure. The poio has that sense of doing it back in verse 15, to preparing it. Interestingly, the other version of this text has to thalmasta poiunti kurua, for making amazing things for Yahweh. The Latin Vulgate here has domino mirabilia facienti, again for making wonderful things for the Lord. So why he chose this verb here is not clear, it's quite obscure. Kai Manoah kai hegune autu blepontes, and Manoah and his wife were looking on. Kai agenito into anabenai ten flogger epano tu thusiasteriu heos to uranu kai anabeho angelos curio ente flogi tu thusiasteriu kai Manoah kai hegune autu blepontes kai epesan epi prosopon auton epitane gain. And it came to pass that, we get ento plus the infinitive, that while the flame was rising up from anabino, up above the altar, this is the standard word for a Jewish altar in the Septuagint, the thusiasterion, so above the altar, as far as heaven, and the angel of Yahweh went up in the flame of the altar, and Manoah and his wife looking on, so we'd say were looking on, and they fell on their face upon the earth. Epesan, it's normally a strong aorist in classical Greek from pipto, so they fell on their face upon the earth. Kai u pros etheken eti ho angelos curio ophthenai pros Manoah kai pros ten gunaika autu. And the angel of Yahweh, now here's this use of prostithemi again. literally did not add to appear. And again, this is the passive here, but it's passive, I think, used in this active sense with pros. So we'd say the angel of Yahweh no longer continued to appear to Manoah and to his wife. Totiegno Manoah ti angelos kuriou hutos. And at that time, then, Manoah realized that this man was an angel of Yahweh. Kai epen Manoah prostengunaika autu thanato apothenumata hoti theon edamen. And Manoah said to his wife, literally, we will die by means of death. This is some very odd expression here. It's again a Hebraism. So often rendered, we will surely die. Literally, we will die by death. We will surely die because we have seen theon. Well, it may mean God with a capital G. It could just be a God. It could mean a divine being. The Hebrew has Elohim, but that can be used in general of any God, not just Yahweh. So it may be we have seen God, or we have seen a divine being, or a God. Apen auto hegune autu aethelen hokurios thanatosai hemas uk an eleven ek keros hemon holocautoma kai thusian kai uk an edexen hemin tauta panta kai kathos kairos uk e kutisen hemas tauta. And his wife said to him, now we get the article here with kurios, so if the Lord, perhaps if Yahweh, wished to put us to death from thanato, he would not have taken the whole burnt offering and the sacrifice, this perhaps the cereal sacrifice, from our hand, and he would not have shown to us, this is from Dakenumi, he would not have shown to us all these things, kai kathos kairos, and again this is a literal translation of the Hebrew. Kairos can mean opportunity, and how it is the time or the season. Perhaps you have to render this something like, at this very time, he would not have made us to hear these things. So he would not have shown all these things to us, and he would not have made us to hear all these things, kathos kairos, perhaps something like at this very time. Now the verb here is akutisdo. It's only in the Septuagint. It's another form. It's a form from akuo, to hear, but this is to make to hear. It's a causative form, is the word I was looking for, from akutisdo, to make to hear, or to cause to hear. Kai etaken hegune huion kai kalesem tonanima autus Samson. And the woman bore a son, and she called his name Samson. As I mentioned, connected with Shemesh, to do with the sun. Kai hedrun the topaidarion kai eulogasen auto kurios kai exeter pneuma kuriou sonek poroius thai auto en parembele dan kai anameson Sarah kai anameson Esther. And the woman bore, they called his name Simon, and we get this verb here, hadruno, which is or hadrunamai in the middle. It's to come to maturity. It does appear in classical Greek. It's in Xenophon and Herodotus, where it means to make, to ripen. Here it says to come to maturity as a human being. So, and the paidarion, the boy, the child, this is a classical word. It's in Aristophanes, but it's meant more as a comic word there. So the boy came to maturity, and Yahweh blessed it, because it's neuter. And the Spirit of Yahweh began sun ek peruhamai. This is to go forth with him in the parambole is a word for a military camp. It's probably a Macedonian word. It survives. It's very common in the Septuagint, extremely common in the Septuagint, goes into the New Testament as well. So in the camp of Dan, now anameson is used in the sense of between. So between Zorah and between Estael, which is Eshtaol is the Hebrew word, between Zorah and Eshtaol. And we get this use of anameson, meaning between, which is quite a common idiom in the Septuagint. And that's the end of chapter 13.